Blake Lively may have believed she could recover some of the millions she spent on this legal battle, but the judge had a different view. Rather than getting reimbursed, she now appears to be facing yet another financial setback, one that could stand in the way before her appeal even has a chance to move forward.
I thought it was over. I thought they settled, but now there's a fight over money, right? What's going on?
There's going to be a hearing in New York City where both parties are given 30 minutes to argue their case of why Blake should or should not get these attorney's fees and why this Me Too Law 47.1 should be valid or not.
The last court hearing about to take place in New York tells a very different story. The judge has ordered Blake and Justin to come right back into his courtroom, and the actions he's taking send one clear message. He is possibly going to discipline the good girl for her unrealistic demand for getting money that she barely deserves.
The upcoming court hearing in New York is shaping up to be a pivotal moment in this legal battle. The judge has ordered both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni back into the courtroom to address a dispute over legal fees, signaling that the matter is far from over. After the main lawsuit concluded, Blake's legal team sought to recover substantial litigation costs from Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios through additional legal filings. However, that strategy has now become the focus of judicial scrutiny, and instead of securing the reimbursement they sought, it appears to have created yet another legal obstacle for Blake before her appeal can move forward.
Well, the order that he just filed, Judge Lyman did today, really calls into question what the attorneys have been saying, and whether or not they misled their client into settling this case.
Although the lawsuit was resolved without going to trial, the legal dispute did not end there. As part of the settlement, most claims were dismissed, but Blake Lively's legal team preserved a request under California Civil Code Section 47.1 seeking to recover attorneys' fees and additional statutory damages from Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios. If successful, the financial impact could be significant, making this post-settlement dispute one of the most closely watched aspects of the case. Rather than bringing a complete end to the litigation, the remaining fee request has extended the legal battle and placed both sides back before the court.
They want Blake to prevail because if she doesn't prevail, then that could also hurt their argument for fees as well, because they're fighting Baldoni for fees.
According to public reporting and online commentary, the judge appears intent on closely examining the remaining dispute over attorneys' fees rather than allowing it to proceed without scrutiny. Critics have argued that Blake Lively's legal strategy stretches the purpose of the statute, while her supporters maintain it is a legitimate legal remedy available under California law. By requiring both legal teams to return to court, the judge has signaled that the request deserves careful review before any decision is made, placing the legal arguments from both sides under renewed judicial examination.
And now the judge is put in a position where he actually has to rule on.
To understand the dispute, it helps to look at how settlements generally work. In most cases, a settlement is intended to resolve a lawsuit without the time, cost, and uncertainty of a trial, with each side agreeing to give up certain claims. In this case, however, Blake Lively's legal team preserved a request under California Civil Code Section 47.1, allowing them to seek attorneys' fees and statutory damages even after the broader litigation was resolved. Their argument appears to be that they remain entitled to those remedies despite the settlement. Whether that interpretation is legally valid is now up to the judge, who has scheduled further proceedings to examine the issue. Rather than automatically granting the request, the court is scrutinizing whether post-settlement fee recovery is appropriate under the law, making this one of the key unresolved questions in the case.
If you believe the reports, she spent upwards of $30 or $40 million on legal fees. That's just on legal fees, which is crazy.
In high-profile Hollywood lawsuits, legal teams often submit lengthy briefs packed with detailed arguments, evidence, and legal analysis in an effort to persuade the court. In this case, however, the judge has imposed strict filing limits and procedural requirements, signaling that the court expects concise, focused arguments rather than an overwhelming volume of paperwork. The order suggests the judge intends to keep the proceedings tightly controlled and ensure that both sides address only the legal issues that are directly relevant to the dispute before the court.
So here he's saying, I want a report single space, no more than 2 pages. It must be 12-point font, and I don't want all your bullshit footnotes.
The judge's procedural order sets clear limits on how both sides must present their arguments. According to the court's instructions, the briefs are restricted to 2 single-spaced pages, must use a standard 12-point font, and may not include footnotes. These requirements leave little room for lengthy legal arguments or extensive citations, requiring each side to focus only on the most relevant issues. Rather than allowing sprawling filings, the court has signaled that it wants concise, straightforward submissions that directly address the dispute before it.
It lays out, in my opinion, all of the missteps by her lawyers. Makes it, if I'm the lawyer who's defending her, I'm not going to like that order.
The timeline for this punishment is honestly just as harsh as the formatting rules. These highly restricted 2-page documents must be submitted before June 1st. And this deadline forces Blake Lively's lawyers to work frantically through the entire weekend, scrambling to condense their massive demands for $100 million into this tiny restricted space. These are lawyers who are billing hundreds of dollars per hour, and now they have to spend their weekend cramming everything into 2 pages with no footnotes. Beyond all these strict rules and the weekend deadlines, there is also this roadblock that her team desperately hoped the judge would just ignore. But the judge, he's shining a very bright spotlight directly on it, and it's absolutely killing their case. This problem is what legal experts call an extraterritorial conflict. And it's basically the big loss for everything Blake Lively is trying to do.
California law, the person claiming the privilege usually has to prove they earned it, which means Blake might have to prove she was telling the truth without malice, meaning without, knowingly sharing false information.
One of the legal questions in the case is whether California Civil Code Section 47.1 can be applied in litigation being handled in federal court in New York. Blake Lively's legal team argues that the statute supports their request for attorney's fees and related damages, while the opposing side disputes that position. The judge has previously ruled on other claims by examining where the underlying events occurred, including references to activity connected to the film's production in New Jersey. That legal background makes the applicability of California law an important issue the court will have to evaluate before deciding whether any post-settlement recovery is appropriate.
And Lyman has already thrown out 10 of her 13 claims, so that is a bit of a hill to climb for her.
To understand why the judge is stepping in so aggressively, it's important that I explain what this California Civil Code Section 47.1 actually is, and how Blake Lively's team is trying to twist it for their own benefit. Section 47.1 is a new law whose original purpose is to protect non-wealthy, everyday survivors of mistreatment. But Blake Lively is not powerless. She is an extraordinarily wealthy, heavily connected, A-list Hollywood celebrity with endless financial resources at her disposal. She is literally the opposite of who this law was designed to protect. Yet she and her team are trying to use this exact law after the case has already been settled. Because Justin Baldoni originally filed a countersuit against her to protect his own production company from her media tactics, her team is now trying to claim that she is at a loss. The judge sees this whole mess for exactly what it is, and his current doubt is focused on this exact thing.
A judge and a jury will catch it. And once they stop believing you about one thing, they will stop believing you about everything.
Blake Lively's request for attorney's fees and other statutory remedies faces significant legal hurdles. Under the law, obtaining enhanced damages or fee awards generally requires meeting specific legal standards, and the burden rests on the parties seeking that relief. Because the underlying lawsuit ended through a settlement rather than a trial, there was no jury verdict or judicial finding resolving the disputed factual allegations between the parties. As a result, the court must determine whether the remaining claims for post-settlement recovery can proceed based on the existing record and the applicable law, making this one of the central issues the judge will address in the upcoming proceedings.
How do you try to sue over a breach of contract when you don't know the other party?
This missing evidence is exactly the problem the judge is targeting for the June 1st hearing. He has set aside all previous complaints and is asking both sides one very specific question. Whose burden is it to establish this wrongdoing when there is no active trial record? I mean, we can name Blake Lively, as she is the one demanding all this money. So, she has the burden of proving she deserves it. But here's the catch that she built for herself. Because she willingly signed a settlement that canceled the trial, she completely ended her own ability to ever present evidence. She wants the massive multi-million-dollar payout of a trial victory, but she refused to actually go to as she wants all the rewards without doing any of the work. The judge might be preparing to punish this lazy and greedy strategy by throwing the entire demand straight out the window because there's simply no way for her to prove what she needs to prove without a trial, and she canceled the trial herself.
All of these rules for attorney's fees and post-judgment whatevers presume there is a finding. They presume there is a judgment.
Blake Lively's legal strategy also raises procedural questions under the federal rules of civil procedure. Rule 54 generally governs requests for costs and, in some cases, attorney's fees after a case is concluded, but it is not itself a mechanism for deciding disputed factual issues or imposing substantial damages without the necessary legal foundation. Because the underlying case ended through settlement rather than a trial, the court must determine whether the requested relief can be considered on the existing record or whether the absence of factual findings limits what may be awarded. That procedural issue is expected to play a key role in the judge's decision.
I think that this federal judge in New York is going to feel similarly, and he's kind of already indicated that he's pretty...
During recent proceedings, the judge directed both sides to brief the issue while assuming, for the sake of argument, that Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 54 applies. That instruction does not reveal how the court will ultimately rule, but it does require the parties to address whether the rule provides a proper procedural basis for the relief being sought. Legal commentators have noted that the upcoming briefing will test whether Blake Lively's request is supported by both the federal procedural rules and the applicable law. Ultimately, the judge's decision will turn on the legal arguments, the procedural history of the case, and the court's interpretation of the governing statutes, not public opinion or media narratives. Among the possible outcomes, the court could conclude that the legal requirements for post-settlement recovery have not been satisfied, but the final determination will rest entirely with the judge after reviewing the parties' submissions.
And this is a new law, so he doesn't want to make any mistakes here. So he's basically asking both parties here to give him the legal arguments on why this law should be used in this case, and also who has the burden of proving.
If the court ultimately rules against Blake Lively's request, it could represent a significant setback in the ongoing legal dispute. Reports indicate that both sides have invested substantial resources in litigation, legal counsel, and public relations throughout the case. A ruling denying post-settlement recovery would not necessarily resolve every remaining issue, but it could weaken one of Blake's key legal arguments and influence how the litigation is viewed moving forward. For Justin Baldoni, such a decision could reinforce his legal position, although it would not bring the broader dispute to an immediate end. Appeals, additional motions, or other proceedings could still follow. Whatever the outcome, the judge's ruling is likely to become an important milestone in a case that has already drawn widespread public attention and could continue to shape the legal strategies of both parties in the months ahead.
As you know, she's asking for legal fees now. Nothing has moved in that direction, but the judge told her a couple of weeks ago that he's not interested in hearing anything more about it. He doesn't want more evidence.
High-profile legal battles often involve enormous financial resources, experienced legal teams, public relations specialists, and intense media attention. In cases like this, public opinion can shift quickly as both sides present their narratives through interviews, court filings, and media coverage. Ultimately, however, those efforts do not determine the outcome of a lawsuit. The responsibility for resolving the legal issues rests with the court, which evaluates the evidence, applies the law, and issues its rulings based on the record before it. As the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni dispute continues, the judge's decisions, not social media campaigns or headlines, will shape the direction of the case. Regardless of which side ultimately prevails, the proceedings have highlighted the complex relationship between celebrity, public perception, and the legal system, making this one of Hollywood's most closely watched legal battles. What do you think about the case so far? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates.